Hello once again and welcome back to another episode of Unfolded, the HARVEY Maps Podcast. On this episode, we're going to be speaking with four highly decorated trail runners who've competed and entered into some of Britain's longest and toughest ultra races. Firstly, thank you very much for joining us on this very special episode of Unfolded, which is the HARVEY Maps Podcast. It's not often we've had more than one person. In fact, we've never had more than one person, so this is the very first time. I'm delighted to say we're doing a focus on trail running, ultra running, all the things that I've never even attempted in my life. So I'm lovely to have you all here. I'm going to just introduce you all. I've got Lewis Taylor, who used to be a cartographer here at HARVEY Maps. That was his first love, I hope. But he's absolutely absolute expert in the old trail running field. I've got Rebecca Devereux. I think I'm saying that right, Rebecca.
Yeah, all good.
I've got notes on you all. I was planning to introduce you slightly later, but Rebecca, I've got you're a member of the Black Trail Runners, I believe.
Yeah.
A vet, a mum, and you're a podium on the Montane Winter Spine Sprint. Is that correct? Yeah. And we met you at the National Running Show recently because you feature on our very new Montane Winter Spine maps. Welcome to the show, and we've got Jen Scotney and Marcus Scotney on the one screen in front of me there. Jen is one of our very own HARVEY ambassadors. Welcome, Jen. You're a mountain leader. You're author of the book Running Through the Dark, and you're a podium finisher on the Spine Challenger. Is that correct? I think I've got that right. And Marcus, you've won all sorts of things. I gather you've won the Dragon's Back, Cape Wrath Ultra, 30 more years of experience in endurance, and you competed for Great Britain at the World 100-kilometer Championships. I think that's right. I'm going to come back to Lewis. Lewis wasn't just a cartographer at HARVEY Maps, I should say. You've got a Bob Graham round in 19 hours and something. Remind me. 19 minutes. Yeah, that's. I remember dropping you off after a HARVEY Maps event to do that. And you've third on the last year's Cape Wrath Ultra. Yeah, we've got it covered. We've got four absolute champions of trail running. So welcome, guys. Thank you very much for joining us. I'm just going to kind of throw some questions out, and hopefully you're all happy to sort of chip in with your thoughts. But perhaps I can start with you, Marcus, since you've had a right old career in this. What kind of got you hooked into running, and what kind of triggered it all for you in the first place?
Well, how long have we got, really? But so interestingly, and this hasn't been scripted in any way, but my first introduction to running was through using maps in orienteering.
This is the greatest segue I could have ever done. Yeah, this is perfect.
Absolutely. Like, as I say, this is not scripted in any way. Well, let me just turn to page 3. Yeah, so when I was at secondary school, I had a PE teacher, Mr. Dickinson, who one day after we were doing cross country had said that I ever heard of orienteering. The school had its own orienteering club. There was quite an active scene down. Grew up in a little village called Portishead near Bristol. Quite good active schools kind of set up, and went along. I think I probably spent around about half an hour or 40 minutes lost on the Bristol Downs, trying to run what was like a yellow course or something, but I just absolutely loved it. I've always enjoyed looking at maps. My parents used to take us on lots of walks. We had a pile of, if I'm allowed to say, of brand maps in the house, and I just thought, was intrigued by maps, just loved them. So then to find a sport where I could be kind of running around the forest or different areas, making my own route, it was just a fantastic introduction.
Yeah, and exploring at pace, I think.
And then I got into mountain marathons, and from there that then got me into hill running, fell running, and then I kind of discovered more elements of kind of trail running and even ultra marathons. So
How about same sort of question to yourself then, Rebecca? How did you kind of came to it quite late? Is that right? Or
Yeah, so I was never a runner. I didn't do running at school or anything like that. And yeah, like 5 years ago, it was a COVID time basically. I got a really busy job. It was pretty stressful time. And yeah, I just needed something to do. I'd done sort of group activities, but obviously I couldn't do that because COVID didn't let you do it. And the only thing that you were allowed to do was run. So I was like, oh, I'm gonna have to give this a go. And I'm really lucky. I live in Hefton Bridge, so I'm like sort of at the foot of the Pennines. We've got really beautiful sort of countryside around us. It's pretty hilly, and that had always sort of put me off getting out because I was like, I can't run up there, I can't do it. But yeah, I just sort of started really small and just used it really as a way to get a bit of breathing space, just to get a bit of time on my own in what was a very sort of busy, noisy time. And that's how it started, and it just kind of snowballed from there.
It has to start somewhere. And Lewis, I remember speaking to you about when you started. Well, I know some of when you started, but what do you remember? What was the thing that got you hooked?
Pretty similar to Marcus, actually. I grew up in the Lake District and started orienteering quite young with my mum and dad, and then I joined the local school team and we did the local school league and kind of progressed from that, and then joined the Northwest squad and just did more and more orienteering and spent probably 10-15 years doing it relatively seriously, kind of trying to get into the kind of national teams and all that kind of thing, and went through the age groups and just made lots of friends doing it, traveled all over the place, lived in Sweden for a bit doing it, and then went to university and kind of
press the pause button.
Student life a little bit, and then but also was running a bit more as well, just running for fun, and then got into kind of fell running a little bit more. My first introduction with Harvey's was 2008 Saunders, my dad, when I was 16.
Oh, right. Yeah. We've been doing that event for a while.
Yeah, and just that definitely triggered the kind of whole getting out on bigger days and kind of hours and hours and hours spent out on the
And
snowball.
Thanks, Liz. And Jen, we're gonna finish the first question with yourself. What's it been like for you with running? Where did you start?
Well, I had pretty active childhood living in the Peak District, and my dad was a fell runner and my mum used to run as well. So I was often dragged out on muddy walks with maps and got into it that way. And I did used to run when I was younger, although more football for me as a teenager, but really into any sports. But when I went to university and then lived in London, I got completely out of it in my 20s and only came back to it a bit later. I was back living in the Peak District by then. I started walking in the Lake District as well on holidays and ticking off the Wainwrights. But I got back to running when I was kind of working as a stressed out lawyer, and my dad and my brother had just died, and it was for me just a way of sort of processing that and getting back to the things that I loved in childhood. And so I started running and found ultras and started doing more racing then.
That's really interesting. It actually leads me on to the next question I've got, which I was going to ask to you, Jen, anyway, but as a starting point. But everyone, feel free to chip in. I've never really done a long run at all. I struggle to do a 5K without kind of needing a little break halfway along. But what's it like when you're in the middle of one of these long endurance races, and particularly, I suppose, what goes through your mind? It's hard to sum up, maybe, but. I mean,
it can be everything from what am I going to eat at the next checkpoint or in the next time I delve into my pack, to what the hell am I doing with my life? I think for me, I mean, now I'm away from racing, so I did do some long races. The longest that I did was Northern Traverse, and I can't remember what I was thinking about for however many days I was out on that. I think what I love about running, and now that I'm moving a bit slower, but I'm still getting out for big days in Scotland, is just that you just have that space to think about everything. And I've gone back to working in a busy job. I'm no longer a lawyer, but I work in politics, and for me it really just gives me space to process things, to think about things, to think a bit more creatively, not just about work, about other things, and helps me clear my mind. So yeah, plenty of benefits. Sometimes I listen to music, sometimes I don't.
Yeah, a bit of everything.
Bit of everything, and kind of a bit of what I need at that point.
Yeah. And is that echoed by the others on the panel here? Is that anyone?
Yeah, I think it's nice that like, say if you're racing, like the only thing that you have to think about is you in that race and what you're doing. When there's so much other stuff going on in life, whether it's work, whether it's, you know, kids and family or whatever else is going on, when you're in it, you're literally only thinking about where do I need to go, what issues have I got, what can I sort, do I need to eat? And it's just being able to have that focus just on that little bubble, I think is, I think it's really good.
yeah, that's really interesting to hear. I suppose what brings on to my next question, which I was going to, maybe I can put to Lewis and Marcus. And I was thinking particularly about Lewis, your Bob Graham round, but I suppose it links to all sorts of things. What keeps you going, and when there's a time that you've got in your head to beat, or you're really keen on that, what drives you when the going gets tough to get to that point?
Well, Bob Graham specific was one of my best friend's times. We were roughly pretty similar. We ran marathons together, so that kind of gave me a kind of rough aim. And that's why the one is key in 1921, because he got 1920. And what could you go? I don't know. Bob Graham was one of the best days out I've ever had, because I got to run with all my friends, and every 3 or 4 hours you got to change them for a whole different set of friends. And I guess the motivation wasn't about getting to the end. It was just about a really good day out. And so
is that different? Is that different then as to what Rebecca and Jen have described when you're running? Is that with a support group, and is that different to being on your own on the Cape Wrath that you and I think Marcus has done?
Yeah, I think they're very two different things. I think certainly for me that Bob Graham was like was about kind of having a huge day out with some friends, and going for a time and having that support, whereas the Cape Wrath is a little bit more individual. I loved thinking about what I think about sometimes is nothing, absolutely nothing goes in. Like the best point of ultra running is when you get into that kind of flow state and you're not thinking about anything, and it's just like super peaceful, and you're just enjoying the surroundings. That's like the best. That's what I aim to try and get to, but it's quite hard to get into that state sometimes. So that's like the runner's high, I guess, is what people talk about. But
coming back to you, Marcus, is it when you finish these events? I mean, I say it so flippantly, when you finish one of these, 7-day, whatever it is, but can you sum up for the people listening what does that feel like to cross the line?
I mean, it's interesting, isn't it, hearing us all talking about like what we experience or what our mindset is like, or that internal monologue when we're in races, and then to articulate sometimes what it feels like, because I think also that finish line emotion is so contextual as well to maybe how the race has unfolded leading up to it, maybe what the race has meant. So for this year at Cape Wrath, I'm not normally very emotional on finish lines. It's not something that tends to happen to me. But at last year's Cape Wrath, as Lewis will contest because he was there, I was like a blubbering wreck. And I think part of that was because I never knew whether or not, I had run it and won it 9 years previously. And I turned 50, so I'm no longer this young whippersnapper anymore. So I didn't know whether or not I could perform. I'd also badly hurt my ankle in the middle of the race on day 4, and that was causing me a lot of issues. So that was then putting question marks over, could I continue to hold on to my podium? So there was a huge amount of mix of emotions what came over me when I crossed that finish line, and those emotions stayed for a while, because when Jen picked me up after we'd been on this short kind of ferry ride, I kind of nearly was blubbering then again and said, never let me go back near to this race again, which was already kind of changed. So I think that the emotions, or maybe what you're experiencing at the end, is maybe kind of the expectations you put upon yourself, and then also maybe what them races meant to you in the build up, and maybe what you've experienced, and whether or not you feel maybe you executed the race to how you felt you could do your best, or if you really enjoyed it, if it was a good experience, or if there were certain things you kind of really struggled with. So and that's why I think, we probably will agree about racing, is there's so much uncertainty going in there. Lewis talking about hitting that flow state, and we hit that flow state because of a challenge.
Right.
And we those challenges, we try and minimize them best we can, but we never really know what we're going to experience, and that's what makes it exciting. But I also think that then will maybe to a degree determine what we experience after we cross that finish line.
Thanks, Mark. I mean, it's really interesting to hear. I cannot imagine what it must be. I think I always wonder how tiredness plays a part in that, because that obviously impacts the thoughts that are going through your head. But obviously we're a mapping company here. We're going to talk a bit about maps, if that's all right. When you're I suppose when you're in the middle of these long races, then I'll aim to start with Rebecca if I can. But how do you think a physical map plays a part? Do you refer to the maps that you have, or is it how does it come into play?
Yeah, so I think it's an interesting one when we sort of live in a world where GPS is like everywhere, and everyone's got their watch and they can follow their route and that kind of things. But say, for example, when I was training for the Spine Sprint, I was sort of looking for tips and ideas of how to do the best that I could, and I approached a guy that has done the full spine on a number of occasions for advice on it. And his main piece of advice to me was, when you're recceing that course, put the GPS away, get your map out and recce it with your map, because that way you're not just looking at a dot and following it, you're looking at the landmarks around you. When you're out there on race day, you're going to recognize where you are. You'll be able to, if you need to, refer to your map back. So if there is any issues, you might go, whatever, you don't know what's going to happen. You're always going to have that confidence in the route and in the skills. And I think that's super important, because I think so many people enter races now and just the map's in the bag and it's, oh, we're not going to use it anyway, it's just there for the mandatory kit, when actually it's so important, and it makes a huge difference when you're sort of in those situations. And I've been in situations where people have blindly been following the GPS, and I know for a fact it's not right, because it will take you the wrong way sometimes. So I think it is super important that you've got those skills, and that you do use your physical map as well.
And the recceing you mentioned then, is that how much prep and recceing goes into one of these long distance races? I don't know.
I think it depends. Yeah. So I mean, obviously, if you're in a situation where you can do it, then that's great, because not every situation. I'm lucky. So when I did the Spine, I live locally, so I live in Hebden, which is where we end, so I could do it quite easily. Obviously that's not going to be the case with every race that you do, but say I'm going out to Wales and in Snowdonia for a couple of races over the summer, and I'll be recceing the parts that I can do, but again, I'm always looking at the course, looking at the map, looking for landmarks. If I can't do a section, I'll be looking at that map first and making sure that I've got an idea of what what's to come. I think it's important.
You had the map in front of you earlier. I don't know if you're going to show it. Are you going to show it? There it is.
That's the map.
There it is. There she is on the cover. We've got to get that in.
You got to get it in. You got to get it in.
Yeah, I mean, we're really interested here in the office about. We obviously spend a lot of time making these maps, and for those that, as I mentioned earlier, but those that don't know, Lewis himself worked at HARVEY Maps and has worked on producing Dragon's Back, Lewis, Cape Wrath? Is that all those ones come to mind? So when we're in the office, we're really interested in the people competing, and we wonder how often is the map referred to during the race? Like, how crucial is it during the race? Perhaps Lewis would be a good one to talk about, because you've seen it from both sides.
Yeah. Personally, I use the map over. I don't use a watch to navigate because I feel like I'm quicker with the map.
Right.
And also, I think you can gain more advantages for your race if you know how to map read. So looking at the route the day before, if it's a multi-stage, and like looking at where the hills are and planning when you may or may not eat, those kind of key points. And I think from that you can plan forward each day. From Cape Wrath, I think it was a bit of a mix. I think lots of people getting the map out in the evening and looking at the route and talking to each other. There was lots of talk over dinner and in tents, and like best places to get water, for instance, because it was quite a hot year. I certainly used the map a couple of weeks beforehand and like went through the route again and like marked on in my mind and also physically on an old map where best places to get the water, because in the Highlands you can get kind of decent water, and so I think it was a mix. I suspect the majority of people use a watch on Cape Wrath, but I think the map is definitely key in those kind of, when you're in a big group talking about kind of best places to those key points in the kind of the route itself.
Thanks, Lewis. And Jen, what about yourself? How do you use the maps at your disposal? Are they planning, and do you use them on the day? What's your time?
Just everything. And if I can't physically go and recce something, then I can do a good job just looking at the map, just tracing it and just using the features to imagine what I'm going to see. I was just thinking then so I didn't do a race, but I did the African Tailway last year, and it was quite a spontaneous trip because the weather looked good and I had 3 days to go, and I went up, got the bus back to the start and did it over like a day and a half. And I was just thinking then I could cut up the HARVEY map so that it was in little sections, and actually that really helped. Like, I was quite excited to get to the next section of map. And then some of the features that I use that are on the HARVEY maps are like, you put the mileage to the next point of, it's easy to break down like that. I can see the ascent, so I knew what was coming later on. And it just, really helps me before, during. And then I like having it as a little memento, this sort of little map that's carried me along. And I didn't use GPS once. I didn't need to because I had everything there. And little friend on my trip.
Little friend on the trip. That's where HARVEY Maps likes to be, I think, the friend on the trip. But on these events, then, is there a kind of time when using your map has changed? Any tangible moment you can think of where a decision you've made using the map has changed the outcome of a day or even a whole event? Has anyone got any interesting stories on that? Marcus, perhaps come to you first. Is there any moment you can recall?
We survived and all.
I thought we weren't talking about that anymore. I thought the therapist said we should just move on from that on and not bring it up anymore. I mean, in a lot of race situations, because the route is so well defined, I think my first Dragon's Back, when you had where you were able to make a few decisions on the course.
Right.
I think there was a bit on day 3 where I could see this bit of a shorter cut on the map, and it was only once I actually got there in the race I actually know this wasn't going to be anything shorter or anything improved. But definitely in the mountain marathons, which I've continued to dabble in, that's when the map is really, really invaluable. I think, like Lewis was saying, sometimes when you're in a race and you're kind of maybe questioning what's coming up, pulling the map out can sometimes just give you a little bit of reassurance, or maybe you're thinking, actually, I need to start eating now because I've got a big climb coming up, or it enables you to just understand what's you're going to be coming across in the next kind of half hour or hour. But yeah, I wouldn't say I mean, the times when I've needed a map in ultras, I've not had them when I've gone off course in races in Turkey and Costa Rica. And that's why I kind of would rather have a map than it being marked courses, because they can lead astray.
We haven't yet mapped Costa Rica.
We're volunteering to go and help with that.
We'll add it to the bottom of the list, and soon it will rise up. So
I think sometimes when I've been on like the spine race, so I've done the Spine Challenger 3 times, and quite often because of the bad weather they might suddenly put a diversion in, and you can just get a map out and see where you're going and what's going on, which you can't do on GPS. And so it's just really helpful for those sort of dynamic changes, and also just safety of if I did need to get off, or if there's been times where I've just been out on my own and I need to change plans, and where can I cut down? You can just look at a glance, can't you, and see.
This is segueing nicely into my next question then, that I'm going to, thanks Jen, going to aim this at Lewis, just because of his experience with the company and his experience in map making. Lewis, sum up, how does the kind of cartographic element of a map, clarity, is the design of that helpful when you're in the middle of a race?
Absolutely. I'll answer. I think like having a clear map to use is the best thing. There's nothing worse than an over cluttered map, and having the right features on that are kind of appropriate for navigating. And when I worked at HARVEY, the often question we used to get was, why 15-meter contours? I quite like.
We still get that question, by the way.
I bet you do. But it just reduces the amount of contour clutter on the map, and it makes it easier to read. And I think if you're new to navigating, having a clear map with just clear features with a pretty there's an extensive legend, but not too much on there, and with all of the kind of unnecessary information and text as well. Text being correctly kind of positioned so you can really read the map properly for what it is. I think it's key for maybe not as well as racing, but just having a really good time out on the hill. Practicing and training, because you spend more time training than you do racing. Well, most people do anyway. And so going out with a map and either going on the route or doing a similar route where we're closer to where you live. If you've got a proper map, then you're practicing those skills ready for it.
I think also, coming in on that, I love how with the HARVEY map, like now I'm particularly in the mountainous Scottish mountains, Highlands, that I just at a glance with the shading, I can see what sort of terrain, how high I'm going to go. I can see with the colours whether it's worth going and ticking off that summit because it's a Munro or not. And I just like the fact that the paths on the HARVEYs, I'm generally going to find them and know what they're like. So for me, it just gives me that information really quickly.
Rebecca, quickly on the maps, if you'd come to running and trail running sort of pandemic time, were you familiar with maps and so on beforehand, or?
It's interesting being surrounded by orienteers with obviously lots of map reading experience.
Don't worry, I'm not an orienteer.
That was not my background. I was really lucky. At school we did Duke of Edinburgh, so that gave me that sort of grounding. And I think I've got 2 young kids now, and it's looking at sort of the way the world is, unless you're put in a situation where you choose to use a map, it's very easy to just not get any exposure now. Everyone just can send a pin location, they go on Google Maps, so you don't have that. So I feel kind of pretty privileged that I did have that background, and that sort of got me a base level of confidence when it, you know, came to navigating. And when I started off with the running, a lot of that was I would look at a map. Okay, I'm going to pick a route that I've not been before. I'm going to explore sort of the trails. I'm going to explore what's around. I'll try and make it a certain distance and, you know, and navigate it and see. And that's still something I do now. I love, that's part of the trail running and, you know, fell running sort of experiences. I love going out to places I've not been and exploring, and you get the freedom to do that when you can sort of create your own route. So yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. We met you at the National Running Show. Well, I certainly did, and there's a few questions we got quite a lot at the running show, just from people who are really interested. They love trail running, they love going outdoors, but they lack real confidence and knowledge about when to go off their normal route. And we would speak to them about map reading and how that's important to understand what the map is, what it looks like, what's it trying to tell you. And it's the same skills for a hiker, but you're just doing it at speed. So I couldn't offer them any insight on how to do it at speed, but it was about sending them away with a map and saying, go and look at it, run your normal route and tick off the landmarks as you go. And I think you're saying the same, build the confidence to be able to explore, and it will help you with all sorts of things. But thanks, Rebecca. Just moving on just a little bit. Marcus, you've won, you know, so many of these races and tough races. I'm guessing it's a similar story, but your navigation skills and background, is that, what extent did that play in getting you to the finish line of these events?
Yeah, I'm really fortunate that I think just as a teenager, even though I did kind of go off the rails in the latter years, I was really active. I used to morning and evening paper round back in the late kind of 80s. So I was really active, and I think that did develop a good base fitness for me. And then orienteering surrounded me by runners, so I started to understand running. And then when I really kind of in my early 20s started taking running a bit more serious, I just found I had the ability to run, and ultra running didn't really exist in the 90s when I was first properly running, but mountain marathons did, and they seemed like such an amazing adventure. So it was that kind of gentle build up. But I think like Rebecca was saying there as well about using maps for that adventure. So we'd be always kind of supporting the mates, look over a map, and we'd be trying to plan new training routes, new running routes, and that was guiding us. And then also looking at certain races as well, looking at the route beforehand, so you can get an idea, like Lewis was saying, that kind of what I call armchair navigation. So kind of using the maps to start planning the race out. And that would also then help me thinking about my pacing and my fueling in races, because that is such an important part of a success. If you go into especially an ultra marathon without any sort of clear plan, you're not going to finish strong at all. Fail to prepare to fail. It's kind of an adage. So having the maps gives you that opportunity to have that little bit more detail to that plan of where maybe the climbs are, or where the aid station is going to be coming along as well. So that navigation background has been kind of integral, and that's why I always do struggle sometimes on courses which are pre-marked and you don't have a map, because I kind of feel like it's not something I can control then. Not that I'm a complete control freak, but I like to control things I can control going into races, and having a map and being able to navigate as I'm going along. So there has been times when I've created my own maps for races, especially like round Rotherham Way. That was one years ago.
I thought you were pitching for a job.
Just submit your CV afterwards. That's fine.
Here's some that we've done.
He's going to go and get it, I think.
Sorry.
I love it. This is what it's all about. This is how important maps are. He's made his own maps. So, oh man. Jen, just to talk a bit about while Marcus has disappeared, we'll talk to yourself. you in your book, your book was called Running Through the Dark. Is that right? I think you in the book you mentioned a few low moments that you had through that time. This might be a long shot, but does the map kind of help you keep you grounded in some way? Is in terms of, I'm guessing, linking it to what the others have said about being able to plan and prepare what's coming next. Is there anything there that you can tell us about the map?
Yeah, my book was about running along the Pennine Way, and
Yeah.
there was a lot of solo recce's on it, and I got to know the Pennine Way map really well. So yeah, I do. That's one of my favorite maps, and again, cutting it all up into little sections and going along. I think I just love maps and being out and being able to see where I am and what I'm looking at and where I'm going. And I like the recce's because there's no really, you're not worrying about pace or anything. I can go off and explore stuff. I'm thinking like along Hadrian's Wall, where it was more like a history trip than a run. And so yeah, and that was the book spans a period of years of my life, and I kept going back to the Pennine Way. It was kind of something that I was in my life when I was a child. My parents had walked it and told us stories about it, and then I lived around Manchester and used to go up along it, and then set out to try and run it in one go, which didn't go too well, as you'll find out in the book. But yeah, for me, maps are those companions, and I'm out a lot on my own, and so it's usually my little friend.
Little friend, that comes across actually in the posts that you've done on behalf of Harvey Maps as well. So
I mean, some of them I've got, like, I'm thinking of my Peak District one, my Dark Peak one, when I lived there, and it's got notes, it's got scribbles, it's got routes plotted in different colours, and it really, they start telling like my story and why I'm going, and bits were cut off, and I'm sure everybody else's maps, I hope maybe are like that. Maybe they don't butcher them as much as I do, but like, for example, my Scottish ones, I'll have the bothies marked on, I'll have certain notes and bits that I liked, bits that I don't want to go back to. So yeah, they're almost like a book in themselves.
It becomes a absolute a record of a passage of time, doesn't it? But
yeah.
And it's interesting, as a map is a snapshot of a place in a certain time anyway, and so you're just adding your own stories on top of it. But Rebecca, I'd like just mention a bit about your work and stuff that you're doing with the Black Trail Runners.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a bit about that group and whether navigation skills sort of play a part in that group, or
so I mean, Black Trail Runners is a charity and community group that works to increase participation of people of colour within trail running. And yeah, I mean, one of the things that the charity looks at is the barriers that stop people from our community from going out in the mountains, going out on the trails, and safety is like one of the big ones, and navigation is a big part of that. You're not going to step out to go on a trail run, to go out on the moors or whatever, if you have no idea where you can go, what's rights of way, any of that stuff. So navigation is a huge part of it. So one of the things that we do as a charity is we run trail taster days, where members can come, and it's guided by what they need. So a lot of the time they do ask for navigation training, but we've also done sessions with using poles and all sorts of different things. But yeah, teaching navigation skills is really part of it. And that might start off as sort of a more formal sort of sit down and look at a map, this is what the features are, but then it's going out on that run, getting people to point out landmarks, look at it on the map, just trying to get a base level there that hopefully sparks an interest that then can be developed. And so it is a really important part of it.
And I think you've just released a film, is that right?
So wait, it's coming out soon, so it'll be out over the summer. But so representation is another huge part of what I do, and so using my picture on the spine Harvey map is amazing, because one of the things that's really important is, you know, you have to see it to be it. And so if other people from our community see someone like me on the front of a Harvey map doing, you know, one of the spine races, it just shows that, you know, it's achievable, it's something that can be done, and that we belong here. And the film that we're actually putting out is about 7 of our women from the charity were out at UTMB in August, all competing in different race events, from ETC, which is the shortest distance, right the way up to the full loop, the 100-mile race. And it's basically our journey, our stories. It's all about representation. And yeah, it's really cool. So yeah, it's cool.
We'll definitely keep an eye out for that one when it comes out. But
Perfect.
we've got, I'm conscious of the time, and I appreciate it's a Friday, so everyone's got things to do after. But we've got one last section. We call it Map Mythbusters. We're going to just throw some things at you.
Are you going to call?
We're gonna state this, and you can all chip in. The first one: you don't need map skills if the race is marked. Is that a myth? who's going to go first?
I think Marcus should, because that cost him a race.
It's cost me a couple of races,
Several
actually.
races marked.
And your health.
And my health. It cost me my health massively, yeah, in Turkey. Ended up with 3 days in the Northern General afterwards.
Oh dear,
For taking a wrong turning. Partly because I gave myself rhabdomyolysis for trying to get back up to the front of the race. I did win and set a new course record, even with a slight diversion. Absolutely. I think if you can get a map for the course, I would always recommend having it as a backup, because if you do find yourself off route, if it's not well marked, if somebody's moved a sign or something, and you could end up like me in Turkey, completely the wrong direction, almost running down a dual carriageway. So yeah, I think if you can get the map for the area, plot route and take the map.
It sounds like we're going to have another episode just to discuss that one event, I think. But
I was thinking about the Costa Rica one.
The Costa Rica one was really good as well. That cost me a podium finish in Costa Rica, but it did mean I got another trip back out the following year. So silver linings, really.
Oh god. Okay, next question. We'll throw this at Lewis. GPS has replaced paper maps.
Absolutely not. No.
So, is it heading?
One day your technology will fail on you, so back that up with good navigation skills. And also, you can't use the GPS watch to plan your day. Like, you can use a map to plan your day and have a really fun day. And yeah, I think there'll always be a space there for a paper map.
What would I say here? Yeah. Thanks, Liz.
Checks in the post.
Exactly.
I'm biased because I guess it'd be interesting to get Rebecca's opinion on that. But like, I come from just being handed a map when I was like 8, and you just it becomes a skill which is just a skill. It's like riding a bike. I don't think too much about it. But if it's a barrier to entry, then, and you want to just go for a run in the hills, then the easiest thing to fall back on is GPS. So, yeah.
Yeah.
I think there's space for both. Yeah, I think the GPS does provide that little bit of security, but if you're less confident, you can get your instant location, and it will give that security. But yeah, I think you need to have the backup of those skills behind you, like you say. It's important. So yeah, it is good to get people out there and get people started. But I think learning those navigation skills is key.
I've spoken to Mountain Rescue quite a few times over the years, and obviously the technology improves and increases and changes, and the advice now is take your paper map, but also use the tools that are available to you. And so I think that's absolutely spot on. And as Lewis says, one may fail and one may not. So I think that's still really the true thing at the moment.
And it's just on the back of that as well, for in race situation, working with athletes who are coached and trained for things like the spine race. Thinking about your batteries for your GPS, or just becomes another logistical load for the athlete.
Okay, yeah,
and it just takes that extra cognitive bandwidth, which is almost kind of like, do you need to be putting that extra stress on you? Where, if you've got that ability and skill to just do basic map reading, you don't have to be worrying about, have I got enough batteries? Is my watch going to stay charged up? You can kind of just go, I've got my map. Happy days, should that technology fail. So it does remove some of that, you're kind of like
lightening the mental side of it as well. There's other things, removing what you can so you can focus, maybe. Is that that's interesting. A couple more. Jen, I'm going to go for this one.
Mythbuster.
Contour only maps are harder to read.
Oh, have you ever used a contour only map? This is where me and Lewis kind of go, we used to.
There you go.
Training squads.
No, contours are your friends. Contours are crucial.
That's what Joe Faulkner says, isn't it?
Yeah, homage to Joe. And no, they're just great once you understand contours. And I've taught navigation and I've taken groups out on D&V, and it can be quite tricky for some people to really understand. But once you get them, they're so useful. It's not going to be like a wall or a fence that isn't there. Like, contours are going to be there. You're going to be able to feel them. You're going to know whether you're going uphill or downhill, even if it's pitch black or in the mist. So that's generally what I'm using when I'm out.
That's
on a map.
Really good.
And also back to races, you kind of want to know where those climbs are coming and understand how steep they might be, or when you're going to have a little rest. And so I think when I was doing Northern Traverse, and you've got the lake section first, and I could just break that down to like 4 big climbs and tick them off and know exactly what was coming. And so very, very useful.
Good. Yes, that's what I like to hear. Final one throws to Rebecca. Navigation doesn't matter if you're in the middle of the pack.
Oh, it absolutely does.
I have no
saying
idea.
about Rebecca, she's won a race.
I know.
No, I am I'm frequently in the middle of the pack, and yes, it does matter because you can still very much get lost in the middle, especially on the longer distance races. You can go a long time without seeing people. You can go the wrong way, so absolutely, it does matter.
that was my question actually, because I have no concept of how many people you see along these 4, 5, 6, 7 day races. I appreciate you see them at the end of a day and the start of a day maybe, but during the race it spreads out. So that was why we threw that one in, just to see does it. In my head, if you're leading the race, that's the one who needs the map navigation. But I'm guessing everyone does. So
there's just more people to have the wrong idea as to where to go if you're in the middle. So you need to know where you're going.
Lewis will go on this, having done Cape Wrath twice as well. Great thing with Cape Wrath is, if you're at the front of the race, you've started off last every morning, and you're working your way through the field, and you're just constantly coming across people, and you get this sense you are in a remote area of Scotland, but it's just wonderful. Every so often you just see a small group of people, and you're cheering them on, they're cheering you on. So you never really get this sense of, oh my God, I'm completely on my own here. I'm not seeing anybody for hours and hours. So it's always somebody, and even then the odd marshal will suddenly pop up somewhere as well.
I specifically go out of my way to find routes where there's nobody. So like when we moved to Scotland, I had like 3 days off, and I just went to the Cairngorms with my map, with my tent. I think I had a night in a bothy, but otherwise camped out, and probably went like 3 days without seeing a single person. So couldn't really follow anyone then.
No, that sounds like that was what you needed.
Yes, what I went for.
There are numerous stories around people following each other in fell races, and they're in the middle of like a small pack within the middle of the race, and they're just following the person in front because it's the easiest person to follow, right? And trusting your own skills, right? And take ownership of your race. And I think you can have a better race because of it. I've been in a couple of fell races where you're the only one who gets a map out in the middle of the mist, and then all of a sudden you're at the front of the pack, and everyone's staring at you, going like, right,
and everyone's following you.
You can take them on you can take them on the wrong route if you really want to. There's famous stories of that as well.
There's a story from our running club there. because they won an award for this, which was our award is for incompetence in the hills. And they started just kind of following people, following flags on their race, but they'd actually crossed into a different race that was an ultra marathon. So they were supposed to be doing a fell race in Wales and ended up running a much further distance, on finishing in a completely different place on a different finish line.
I love that. Well, I hate to be in it, but that's a great story. I think we're probably just about out of time, so I'm not going to throw any more questions at you guys. But thanks very much for joining us. Thank you to Rebecca, Jen, Marcus, and Lewis. Obviously, really appreciate your thoughts and your times, guys. I think we're going to tag all of your social media handles or names or whatever it's called, and yeah, we'll get everyone to have a look at you and all the things that you've all achieved. But yeah, thanks once again for being on Unfolded, the HARVEY Maps podcast.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Many thanks to our 4 guests for today's episode. Many thanks to Lewis, Jen, Marcus and Rebecca. Absolutely interesting insights into what they offered in trail running. If you enjoyed the episode, please do like and follow the series, and there's plenty more episodes online for you to take a look at. Join us next time on Unfolded.